The Badgers are 0-3 in this ridiculously tough stretch for the basketball team. When will the losing streak end? And have you seen the 2025 football schedule? Yikes.
Welcome to the Bucky Report, your destination for all things Wisconsin Badgers. Authentic takes.
Oh my God.
Game analysis.
Touchdown Badgers! Ring one up!
And discussion from the fan perspective.
Woo-hoo!
Thanks for joining us and on Wisconsin.
Welcome to the Bucky Report. We are your hosts, Rajiv and Justin, back together for a midweek quick hit episode to talk about all things Wisconsin Badgers. Justin, how are you, my friend? We didn't get to talk after the Illinois game. I was with Ryan, but yikes! I feel like we just can't catch a break these days, man. It's just a rough time.
Yeah, well, other than women's volleyball, which apparently is just keeps it going, and women's hockey and women's basketball now. 9-2 women's basketball.
That's just a crazy.
I think it's been like 10 years since they've had that many wins this early in the season. But anyways, it's tough for men's sports right now, man. Like everything. Hockey's been rough. Maybe we need baseball back just so we have something else to potentially throw at the wall and hope that something sticks and does well.
I mean, something, man. It's just been bad. So of course, obviously, Wisconsin lost their third straight game against Illinois on Tuesday. I was with Ryan on the reaction show, and I was so frustrated. And I don't think I've ever displayed that so much. I think I said the word frustrated like 10 times because it was just an awful feeling to think we can't ever seem to catch a break. And no matter what we do, our defense just keeps getting in their own way. We're turning the ball over too much. We can never play complementary basketball. We're never, if we're shooting well and we're scoring 80 points, we're not rebounding at all. We're doing things. It's upsetting right now to watch. And we've got one more game in this sort of mini tough stretch at Butler on Saturday. And boy, do I hope we can get that done because we just need something to break this cycle. And then all of a sudden we're 0-2 in conference, which that's something that we're not even talking about that much. Like that's a really big hole to start in. Justin, I'm nervous. I don't like being in the situation. I still think the team is good, but when you can't defend and you can't rebound, I'm not even sure what you have.
That to me is where I question how good they actually are, because we're getting a kind of a history now with this team and getting a feel for them. I think teams are starting to adjust to them. The two most obviously we have Blackwell and Tanjay, who are super efficient. And what we're seeing is teams are like, all right, we're not going to let you two beat us. So we're going to make everyone else beat us. And nobody else is really capable of stepping up and doing that right now. Everyone started really hot to the season, and nobody really seems to be. Now, we are playing some better teams, which is part of it. But I don't know where the rebounding comes from. I don't know where the interior defense is going to come from. Crowell seems to have regressed, and the confidence just doesn't seem to be there. And I think that you're probably a year away from Winter really being ready to take on a heavy load in that spot. Like you'll take your little, bursts of him doing some positive things. I don't think you can rely on him to be consistently good right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's a struggle. From a shooting perspective, certain players just aren't doing what they were doing last year. Certainly, Kamar McGee's doing well, shooting 55% from three, which is fantastic. Tanjay shooting 40, Janicki's 35. We're going to talk about him in a second. Winter at 34.8, Blackwell's at 32%, and Klesmit's at 30%. That right there, and Stephen Crowell, of course, is at 20%. That's really where I think we're losing. Even when, like you mentioned, when those guys get stopped up, obviously the scouting reports change. Tanjay's being the key for everyone, which means Klesmit's going to have to shoot at a higher clip than this. And, and Stephen Crowell's got to be able to do something. I brought this up on the reaction show, and I wanted to get your take on this. I was curious to see what you think. We talked about whether or not it's time to make a change to the starting lineup. And I think I think we all can agree Carter Gilmore's had a heck of a year so far, and he's putting in the effort. I know he's not your favorite player. Do you think it's time that Crowell gets benched? And I'm not saying he's not going to play a lot of minutes. He's still going to play a lot of minutes, but put Winter at the 5 and Gilmore at the 4 to start a game. More energy, a little more youth, a little more fire. There's just they're frankly they're just playing better than Crowell, and hopefully that can kickstart us a little bit more offensively. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not against the idea. I think the risk you run there is, will he just completely collapse if that happens? Like, if it's a confidence issue and now you take that away from him, there's two ways it's going to go. Either the player's going to wake up and take it as a challenge and come back stronger, or they're going to completely wilt and you may lose them completely. And they might be a loss this season where they just kind of mail it in. And it's just because the lack of confidence isn't there. And I mean, he's never been a truly great rebounder, but I mean, 0 rebounds, man. Carter's playing hard. And we've always talked about him as a guy who plays really hard. He's actually hitting some shots here and there this year. And I don't see a problem with doing that. Like I said, it's really going to come down to if they feel like they're confident that Crowell will respond to this. And they know him better than we do. Yeah.
I mean, and Ryan was saying the same thing. He thought it was a bad idea that they change the starting lineup, but he thinks they just need a quicker hook for him, which I agree with. I just feel like, I know it's only been 3 games, but it's 3 big games and it's 2 big conference games that you're already in the hole now. And I do think something needs to change, because the biggest thing that's concerning to me is the effort has just not been there on the rebounding side at all. And how many short 3-foot shots is Crowell going to continue to miss? His field goal percentage is bad this year. I mean, what is his field goal percentage right now for the year? It is 43%, which for where he shoots from, that's not very good. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Nolan Winter, who is 61% from the field. And so that, to me, I just feel like is a little bit more what we need. Carter Gilmore is 47%, and he's shooting threes. So I think something's got to change. The other thing is people need to play more, right? Jack Janicki, Kamari McGee. Like, Kamari McGee is averaging he's averaging 22 minutes a game, which is pretty good because it's a lot of foul trouble issues. But I still think the other thought that I had, Justin, was Kamari McGee starting. Because it takes the pressure off of Blackwell and Klesmit to do that, and let Kamari McGee run the point. Blackwell and Tanjay can focus more on scoring, and you don't have to worry about Blackwell trying to run the point too. There's just some tweaks that I feel like Greg Gard needs to make here to get us out of this slump. I mean, we got to do something, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I just find myself taking a look at this upcoming schedule to kind of get a feel for what we're looking at in conference. So right now, like I'm not against playing Kamari McGee. I think he's played really well. I think he's a low maintenance player on the court, and he plays hard and he plays good defense. So I don't really have an issue with him coming out there and being put in and going smaller. Honestly, you realistically have to look at the things that are a problem, though, and see the issue is you really don't have somebody that can give you something that you're losing right now. Rebounding is the major flaw on this team. We don't have somebody that we can go to the bench and just be like, go out there and rebound. You'd like to see Amos be able to come out there and hopefully give you that and just be an athletic rebounder. That's not really his game. So I don't know what the answer truly is with this. From an offensive standpoint, I do think that some of the guys are going to return to form a little bit. I'll be shocked if Klesmit continues to play this poorly. I'll be shocked if, Blackwell doesn't rebound a little bit, because I just think he's too good of a shooter. But we also knew that there was going to be some level of regression with his shooting from outside, simply because
he was shot 40%.
He's going to get a lot more attention. Well, he shot a really high percentage. He's going to be shooting more, and he's going to have a lot more attention than what he had last year.
Yeah.
And then Tanjay, there's a couple of different things that the way I look at him, like he came out gangbusters. It was never going to be able to maintain. And part of that is simply he's going to get hammered the entire season. And a player playing in that style of basketball, it's going to wear you down because he's just getting abused the whole time. Like, he's not a guy who's super athletic and able to get past people and just make the game easy for himself. He's got an old man's game, and he's typically drawing a ton of fouls where he's getting people that are hitting him. And he's kind of going through a little bit of a shooting slump too. Like, he's just not shooting from the outside like he was earlier. The team as a whole hasn't been shooting overly well the last few games. And I think some of that will come back, but they're also, the other part of it is they're not attacking the rim quite like they were. At least Blackwell's not. That needs to be remedied a little bit. Because he's a guy that does a pretty good job of taking his man off the dribble.
Yeah, and I think he's smart with it when he gets into the lane. And when he gets in the paint, he's doing the smart thing, and he's scoring. He's still really efficient. And Tanjay is too. And I think that he's going through a bit of a mini slump, but it's only because obviously teams are keying in on him now. Like, he's the guy. He's the number one guy.
Yeah, they're doubling him. They weren't doing that earlier.
Right. You look at him, all of a sudden you look at like Naismith watch list type stuff. His name is on it. I mean, he is a watch guy that the whole country's talking about him as one of the best transfers in the country, and certainly one of the best players as well. Now, the last couple games excluded. You mentioned the schedule. So we got Butler obviously this weekend, and then Detroit Mercy. So let's assume that's a win. That's it for the year. And then we go into home against Iowa, at Rutgers, home to Minnesota and Ohio State. Those first 4 games of the year, that's really key, because if you lose a couple of those games, all of a sudden now you're 2-4. Like, we need to get this Big Ten conference record started properly at the new year. And considering you got 3 of those games at home, and Iowa, Minnesota, and Ohio State are all beatable teams. And we just had 2 very difficult games. There's no doubt about that. Then we go at USC, at UCLA. I'm going to be at the UCLA game, by the way. If any of you are LA-based Badgers and are going to be at the UCLA game at Pauley Pavilion, I'm going to be there. Can't wait for that. But yeah, there's winnable games, Justin, but we've got to take advantage of this. And I think the Butler game this weekend is huge. After having 3 straight losses, this team needs to shake something up. Yeah. Because then you think you're going to beat Detroit Mercy. So then you can go into the Christmas holiday like, all right, I'm feeling good about it. We at least got that win on Butler. That's a quad 1. That's a good win. I think it's a quad 1. And then you start the Big Ten slate heavy after the new year. Yeah. But you lose this Butler game, now it's just like this 4-game stretch, all losses. It's just not the way we need to be. It's that confidence has to get built again.
No, it's like what we talked about, offline. We're going to talk about it tonight, but the football schedule, it's the exact same thing. It's like you don't want things to start stacking and having players' confidence get kind of taken away from them, because if that goes, suddenly every game becomes a crapshoot. Yeah. And you're playing with, it's a wild card whether you're going to show up for a game or not, because guys just aren't in that right headspace to be competitive every time.
Yeah, we really need to. The title of the episode is "Can we catch a break?" We really need to catch a break in the basketball world, and we could have 4 straight losses. Speaking of 4 straight losses, have you looked at the October schedule next year? It's absolutely brutal. I'm going to put this up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, banner at the bottom here to kind of go over the entire schedule. So it's basically 3-4 game stretches, basically. Or we've got 2 bye weeks that are very well positioned. I think they are, because it breaks up the season. Exactly. You got 3-4 game seasons. And frankly, going into the tough stretch, then coming out of the tough stretch, I think you're really going to want that.
I would like one right smack in the middle of a tough stretch, so you get a chance to regroup, because there's a risk here where if they lose those first 2 games, this season could spiral. Like, you could be 4 straight losses here and have, like, it's nice that I guess you get the bye before dealing with Washington, but this is a joke. I'm sorry, it just is. The schedule is total garbage. Like, they couldn't have broken up our schedule with some of the easier games at various points. Like, we knew it was going to be tough, which, as I've said, I think it's ridiculous that we have stuff like this, and then you have teams like Indiana who are playing nobody. And
Indiana plays Penn State.
You couldn't have swapped one game out for ours for them, so that theirs is slightly tougher and ours is at least a little more manageable. Like,
Nebraska's schedule is super cake. I mean, it's like they've got hardly anyone on their schedule.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like the Big Ten didn't look at the fact that, I know the cop out that I'm seeing is, well, you guys have that Alabama game that you schedule. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you took the Alabama game out and just look at the conference schedule. It's not remotely even in the league. And Wisconsin just got completely kicked in the nuts.
And it never will be. And this is one of the problems.
You can be more balanced than this.
You're right. This is one of the problems with the 18-team league. This is just one of those things. You're in an 18-team league and you've got a 9-game conference slate. You're living in a world of imbalanced schedules. Mm-hmm. And I think that something does need to change, whether that's expanding the playoffs so you don't get hurt by the imbalanced schedule, or taking away a non-con and adding a 10th conference game to maybe, again, try to make that a little bit better. Let's quickly go over the schedule. So the first 4: home to Miami of Ohio, home to Middle Tennessee, at Alabama, home to Maryland. And then we've got the crucial bye week before what is probably the toughest stretch I think I've ever seen on any Wisconsin schedule. At Michigan, they're going to be back next year. Home to Iowa, home to Ohio State, and at Oregon. Then another bye week before the ending of the season, which should be a little bit lighter and a place we're probably going to need to stack up some wins. Home to Washington, at IU, home to Illinois, at the ugly Minnesota Golden Gophers. It's literally kind of bookended. You got some easy stretches on the bookends here. The first stretch, Justin, you got to go 3-1, right? I mean, we have to go 3-1 in that first stretch.
They absolutely have to go 3-1. That's really the only part of the season that I look at that I'm like, all right, I feel pretty good about making a judgment on this. Like, if we do what we should in this off season, we should be 3-1 when this ends. Yeah. And to be fair, I do think that Michigan and Iowa could, if we get the right pieces in place, those are games we can win. Because I don't believe in Sharon Moore. I just don't. Like, if what is being talked about is actually going to happen and Underwood is the starter, and then you also have lost all this defense, I just think that they could be as big a train wreck, if not worse, than what we were this year. Like, now that doesn't really matter if we still stink, but I think they're going to be very gettable yet. And obviously Iowa's losing a ton of defense, but if we can't stop the run, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and we're going to get to some at the end of the show, some quick portal needs. But I mean, I think that ultimately, yeah, it's just the brutal stretch. Gosh, like, you look at that and you think, okay, can we at least go 1-3? I mean, like, so if you go 3-1 in the first set and you go 1-3 in the second set, right? Now you're sitting at 4-4. And then you've got your last set where you legitimately could win 3 games. And all of a sudden you can see a path to 7. Now, I know that is a stretch. I get it. But you can see a path to 7. You can also see a path to like 4 or 5 wins looking at this schedule, because it is daunting. And listen, at Indiana, at Minnesota, those aren't going to be easy games at all. Home to Illinois is not going to be easy. I mean, you can cherry picking good games here. I mean, obviously the first 2 are things you'd win, but Maryland, maybe Illinois, like you've maybe got 2-3 games on this entire schedule that you think of, okay, yeah, those are pretty much automatic wins. Because at this point, with the way this team is structured right now, there are really no automatic wins, maybe other than Miami and Middle Tennessee. And it's a tough thing. And it is tough seeing what other teams have, like the other teams don't have this. We have definitely a top 2 to 3 toughest schedule in the conference, and it's not close. There are teams that don't have to play.
Probably a top 10 schedule in the country.
Yeah,
like, this is ridiculous,
and which makes it all the more challenging to deal with, what we have to deal with next year. But ultimately, it's going to be down to who comes in, right? I mean, our recruiting class is solid, but the transfer portal is turning. We did get one good piece of news that Trechka Kahuna is returning. He went to the transfer portal and now he's back. Who, as you know, Justin and I have been super high on him from when he was in high school. Really, really excited that he's back. I think that's a big win. And this staff continues to impress me in how they can close guys. And clearly that's a discussion. They're like, what? Hold on.
We don't lose anybody they actually want.
Yeah, I mean, right. And I think exactly, because if you look at the portal, there's no massive, like, oh my gosh, it's a huge blow. There hasn't been that. I mean, I do think Braden Moore and Amari Snowden were kind of blows. I think that was a thing that I wasn't happy about, because I think the future was bright for those guys. But other than that, we kept Vinny Anthony, we kept our 2-star running backs that we're really excited about. So and Trechka Kahuna. So now you got 2 top receivers next year and 2 top running backs. that you kept on the roster. Now you've got to go out and get a quarterback.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of talk about who that person could be. The guy from Cal, Mendoza, he announced, was on Twitter today that we're one of his top 4 schools. I mean, are you confident that we can get a good enough quarterback to deal with this schedule that we're talking about?
I think that, provided it's not a top guy, I think that Fickle can make the argument to whoever he needs to get us somebody if they feel like it's somebody who can really elevate us. Because honestly, quarterback is our biggest issue. We probably win 7 games last year if we have a good quarterback. It changes so much. Like if the offense is just coherent and capable of doing some things and just holding on to the football, it completely changes how so many games play out. And it changes how the defense is going to end up playing, because it's going to alter how the other team has to play against you. But Wisconsin has been in the negative column against virtually everyone they've played for 2 years now, because our quarterbacks keep getting hurt. So at some point we have to have some positive luck. And hopefully, they'll make up for it by giving us some defensive stars too that, we're overdue for after watching 2 straight years of pretty much nothing out there.
Beef up the middle and a quarterback. Honestly, that's what you need. Defensive lineman and quarterback. Please, somebody open up the checkbook, get the NIL money out there. We need to get a quarterback that has any kind of semblance of normalcy. I mean, it's just not going to work without it. And I'm afraid of. Yeah,
they need to be solid to good. That's what Wisconsin needs to get in. And I think the scheme will help. I actually really like Grimes' scheme. I think it's going to be effective against a lot of college defenses, because there's a lot of eye candy in this to throw people off. And he's very creative.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement. Even Barry Alvarez is excited about this hire. He's on a radio show or something talking about that. Yeah. And I think that gives me a little more confidence about the schedule too. Obviously, just having an offensive coordinator that's a bit more closer to our style. You watch the stuff from Kansas, you can see the multiplicity in the game. You can see the creativity that he has, and it should go well. But without a quarterback, none of this works at all. Mm-hmm. Speaking of quarterbacks, we did lose Braden Locke. Oh well, Locke is gone. He officially entered the transfer portal. So we've lost quite a bit in the quarterback room, but Mabry's still there. Carter Smith, of course, is coming in. That's pretty much the end of the line. So do you think we get 2 potentially?
I do think we get 2. Because number one, you just need bodies in the room. You bring in one person, you're at 4. And if there is some kind of injury, you just don't have enough bodies. You have to get more bodies in there. And 2 of those guys are going to be true freshmen. And one of them's injured. So you have to find a way to get you want at least 3 bodies that you feel confident in. If you have to play them, that you're not oh my God, what are we doing? And that, not to say that about Carter Smith, but that's anytime it's a true freshman, that's kind of how you feel. You don't want to throw somebody out there that's very limited with experience at this level. And whether that's practicing against guys in camp and everything else, you don't want to send somebody out there that's just not ready for it.
Yeah.
I think you need another guy that probably is roughly where Mabry's at, a redshirt freshman, maybe redshirt sophomore. And then hopefully you get somebody who's only got a year left. And then next year it's a battle for whoever can grab the job.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would love to see a Carter Smith and Mabry Mettauer battle in 2 years. Not now, not right now. They don't need to be battling next year. But if that's the case, then that's good, because those are 2 legitimately good prospects. Carter Smith obviously is highly touted. He's certainly a higher recruit. But if those are the 2 guys that are competing, and I think that's why Mabry stayed ultimately, is that he's still going to get a chance to compete for this job. And that's important. And I think we liked Mabry a lot when he was in high school. So I think there is still a lot of the positivity there. Justin, give me a way too early with prediction on looking at the schedule at the bottom of the screen here. What's your best guess at our record next year?
Well, I look at last year's team and I just think that it almost seems like it's impossible to be worse. I just think we'll be better on both sides of the ball. I think Grimes being the OC is going to help substantially. Just number one, from being able to kind of continue drives. And if you look at his markers, in the last 5 years, he's had 1 year under 40% third down conversion rate. In 2 years at basically 50%. So he's a guy that knows how to move the football down the field, and he's a guy that knows how to churn offense. I think, honestly, looking at this schedule, I would say I think 6-6 is in play.
Yeah.
If they get good quarterback play and the defense takes a step where you're getting some disruption and can honestly shake up an offense a little bit when we play somebody, 7 might be in play, but I'll have to see it in order for it to happen. It's like we're not that far away. Like if the quarterback play goes up to being, like I said, solid to good, a lot of Wisconsin's outlook changes substantially.
Anything is better than what we saw this year from the quarterback position.
Absolutely.
Anything. And I think anyone you bring
in.
It's
the same thing with defense. Like I think anything's going to look better with the defensive line. Like
right. Yeah. I agree. 6-6 is pretty much my way too early prediction when I look at this. I think we will get 3 of the first 4, and then I'm hoping we can get 3 more because it's going to be bleak. And those last 8 games, 3 wins is going to be tough to come by, but I do think we can get there. And yeah, if we get a big splash higher, I mean, it's not a big splash transfer at quarterback. Yeah, maybe we can get to 7 wins. But equally as possible as 7 wins is 5 or 4. And that's just the reality of where this team is right now.
Definitely spiral.
And until we see it on the field, it's just, we've got the recruits there now. And hopefully, we see some of the 25 guys get on the field a little bit. The 24 guys certainly get on the field next year and play more to really increase the athleticism and increase our ceiling on this team, because the recruiting classes are the ceiling, and we know that. So hopefully we can see some action there.
One thing I will say, I do expect the running game to be significantly better this next year.
I mean, and the 2-headed monster of Dupree and Jones. Yep. I mean, that's absolutely going to be 1-2 next year. And, maybe we'll see some Gideon Atuka. Who knows? But yeah, with Jeff Grimes, we know that's what we're getting. That's one of the things I was guaranteed about with getting Jeff Grimes. It's one of the things I'm sure about is an improvement in the running game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't horrible this year, but it wasn't good. And it wasn't surely wasn't Wisconsin good. Yeah. And that is an important thing. And if you're going to have any, and he said it in one of his first interviews with Mark Tauscher, he was like, if you run the ball well, you can do everything well. If you don't run the ball well, you're one-dimensional and it's done. He knows the importance of it, and I think that's super, super important. And it's exciting. It's really exciting. So yes, while the schedule is awful, we didn't catch a break on the schedule. We haven't caught a break on basketball yet. Maybe this weekend, Justin, we can finally catch a break. We will be back on Sunday for our full episode. I think we're going to do some football review. We didn't get to our grades last week, Justin. We're going to do some grades on
Hopefully
football.
We'll have some transfer portal news to discuss.
And that's definitely going to be the big thing, is talk about transfer portal. We're going to go through positions, kind of talk where the needs are on the roster. I know you guys did that recently on Locked On Badgers too, looking at the roster a little more closely. So we'll do that on Sunday and hopefully talk about a Badger victory on the basketball court. With that, we will end the show today, and we'll be back again on Sunday on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Bucky Report or The Bucky Report Podcast from wherever you get your content. Until next time, on Wisconsin.